The Jewish Book of 1st Enoch. Topic of the Dreams. Chapter 83. 1. And now, my son Methuselah, I will show you all the visions that I have seen, relating them before you. 2. Two visions I saw before I took a wife, and the one of them was not similar to the other, the first time, when I was learning to write, the second time, before I took your mother I saw an awful vision, and on their account, I petitioned to the Lord. 3. As I was reposing in the house of Malalel, my grandfather, I saw there in a vision that the heavens were lowered and disappeared and fell on the earth. 4. And as it fell on the earth I saw the earth that it was devoured in a great abyss, and mountains descended on mountains, and hills sank upon hills, and high trees were torn from the trunks, and fell down and sank into the abyss. 5. And on account of this a speech fell into my mouth, and I began to cry and to say, the earth is destroyed. 6. And Malalel, my grandfather, aroused me, as I was reposing near him, and said to me, why do you cry so, my son, and why do you lament so? 7. And I related to him the whole vision which I had seen, and he said to me, a terrible thing you have seen, my son, and the power of the vision of your dream is concerning the secrets of all the sins of the earth, it will be about to descend into the abyss and be destroyed terribly. 8. And now, my son, arise and petition the Lord of glory, since you are a believer, that a remnant may remain on the earth and all the earth be not destroyed. 9. My son, from heaven all this will come on the earth, and over the earth, there will be great destruction. 10. After that, I arose and prayed and petitioned, and wrote down my prayer for the generations of the world, and I will show you everything, my son, Methuselah. 11. And as I went out below, and looked at the heavens and the sun rising in the east, and the moon descending in the west, and some few stars, and everything as he had known it from the first, I blessed the Lord of the judgment, and to him I gave greatness, because he led forth the sun from the windows of the east, and he ascends and rises on the surface of the heavens, and elevates himself, and goes the path which is shown to him. Chapter 84. 1. And I raised my hands in justice, and blessed the Holy and the Great One, and I spoke with the breath of my mouth and with the tongue of flesh, which God has made for the children of men, that they should speak with it, and gave them breath and the tongue and the mouth, that they might speak therewith. 2. Blessed art you, O Lord, King both great and powerful in your greatness, the Lord of all the creation of heaven, King of kings, and God of all the world. Your godship and your kingdom and your greatness will remain in eternity, and to all eternity, and to all the generations your power and all the heavens are your throne in eternity, and all the earth your footstool in eternity and to all eternity. 3. For you have made and do govern all things, and nothing is too difficult for you, and no wisdom escapes you. She does not turn away from her throne, your throne, and not from your face, and you do know and see and hear all things, and there is nothing that is hidden before you, for you do see all things. And now the angels of your heavens do sin, and your wrath is over the flesh of men to the day of the great judgment. 5. And now, God and Lord and great King, I petition and ask that you would establish my prayer for me, that there remain to me a posterity on earth, and that you would not annihilate all the flesh of men, and not make empty the whole earth, and there be everlasting destruction. 6. And now, my Lord, annihilate from the earth the flesh which has angered you, but the flesh of justice and of rectitude establish as a plant of the seed to eternity, and do not hide your face from the prayer of your servant, O Lord. Chapter 85. 1. And after this, I saw another dream, and I will show you all, my son. 2. And Enoch began and said to his son Methuselah, to you, my son, I will speak, hear my words, and lend your ear to the vision of the dream of your father. 3. Before I took your mother Edna, I saw in a vision on my couch, and behold, a bullock came out of the earth, and this bullock was white, and after him there came a female of the same species, and together with this one came other cattle, one of them was black and one red. 4. And that black one horned the red one, and followed it over the earth, and then I could no longer see that red one. 5. And that black one grew, and a cow came with it, and I saw that many cattle, like it and following it, came from it. 6. And that cow, the first one, came from the presence of that first bullock, seeking that red one, and did not find it, and then raised a great cry, and hunted it. 7. And I looked until that first bullock came to her and quieted her, and from that time she did not cry aloud. 8. and after that, she brought forth another white bullock, and after that she brought forth many bullocks and black cows. 9. And I saw in my sleep that white bullock grew and become a large white bullock, and from him came many white bullocks, and they were similar to him. 10. And they commenced to beget many white bullocks, and these were similar to them, and one followed the other. Chapter 86. 1. And again I saw with my eyes, while I was sleeping, and I saw the heavens above, and behold one star fell from heaven, and arose and ate and pastured among those bullocks. 2. And after that, I saw the large and the black bullocks, and behold all changed their stalls and their pastures and their cattle, and began to lament one with the other. 3. And again I saw in the vision, and looked at the heavens, and behold I saw many stars. And they fell from heaven, and were thrown from heaven near that first star, and among those cattle and bullocks, there they were with them, pasturing among them. 4. And I looked at them, and behold they all let out their sexual members, like horses, and began to mount the cows of the bullocks, and these all became pregnant, and brought forth elephants and camels and asses. 5. And all the bullocks feared them, and were affrighted at them, and they commenced to bite with their teeth, and to devour, and to push with their horns. 6. And they then began to devour those bullocks, and behold all the children of the earth began to tremble, and to shake before them, and fled. Chapter 87. 1. And again I saw them as they began to horn each other, and to devour each other, and the earth began to cry aloud. 2. And I again raised my eyes to heaven, and saw in the vision, and behold there came from heaven those who were like white men, one came out from that place, and 3 with him. 3. And those 3 who came out last took me by the hand, and bore me away from the generations of the earth, and elevated me to a large place, and showed me a tower higher than the earth, and all the hills were lower. 4. And they said to me, Remain here until you see everything that comes over those elephants and camels and asses, and over the stars, and over all the bullocks. Chapter 88. 1. And I saw one of those who had come out before, and he took that star which had first fallen from heaven, and bound it hand and foot, and put it in an abyss, and this abyss was narrow and deep and terrible and dark. 2. And one of them drew his sword, and gave it to those elephants and camels and asses, and they began to beat one another, and the whole earth shook on their account. 3. And as I saw in the vision, behold then one of those who had descended through from heaven, and gathered and took all the great stars, whose sexual members were like the sexual members of horses, and bound them all hand and foot, and put them in an abyss of the earth. Chapter 89. 1. And one of those went to that white bullock, and taught him a mystery while he was trembling. He was born a bullock and became a man, and he made for himself a large vessel and lived in it, and 3 bullocks lived with him in that vessel, and it was covered over above them. 2. And I again raised my eyes towards heaven, and saw a high roof and 7 sluices to it, and those sluices emptied much water into a yard. 3. And I saw again, and behold fountains were opened on the earth, in that great yard, and that water began to swell, and to be lifted above the land, and caused that yard to disappear, until all the land was covered with water. 4. And the water and the darkness and the fog increased over it, and as I looked at the height of this water was elevated over that yard, and emptied over the yard, and stood on the earth. 5. And all the bullocks which were in the yard were collected, so that I immediately saw how they sank down and came to naught, and were destroyed in that water. 6. But that vessel swam on the water, and all the bullocks and elephants and camels and asses on the earth sank down, and all the animals, and I was not able to see them, and they were unable to come out, but were destroyed, and sank down into the abyss. 7. And again I saw in the vision till those sluices were put away from that high roof, and the fountains of the earth dried up, and other abysses were opened. 8. Then the water began to run into these till the earth became uncovered, but that vessel reached the earth, and the darkness retreated, and it became light. 9. But that white bullock, which had become a man, came out of that vessel, and the 3 bullocks with him, and one of the 3 bullocks was white, similar to that first bullock, and one of them was red like blood, and one black, and that one, the white bullock, went away from them. 10. And they began to bring forth animals of the desert and birds, so that there arose out of them a varied diversity of kinds. Lions and panthers and dogs and wolves and hyenas and wild boars and foxes and squirrels and hogs and falcons and vultures and buzzards and eagles and crows, and among them was born a white bullock. 11. And they began to bite one another, but that white bullock which was born among them begat a wild ass and a white bullock with it, and the wild ass increased. 12. But that bull which was born from him begat a black wild boar and a white sheep, and this wild boar begat many boars, but that sheep produced 12 sheep. 13. And when these 12 sheep had grown, they gave one of them to the asses, and these asses then gave that sheep to the wolves, and that sheep grew up among the wolves. 14. And the Lord brought the 11 sheep to live with it, and to pasture with it among the wolves, and they increased, and became many herds of sheep. 15. And the wolves began to fear, and oppressed them till they, the wolves, finally destroyed their, i.e. the sheep's young, and threw their young into a stream of much water, but these sheep began to cry aloud, on account of their young, before the Lord. 16. And a sheep which had been saved from the wolves fled, and escaped to the wild asses, and I saw the sheep as they lamented and cried and asked their Lord with all their power, till that Lord of the sheep descended at the voice of the sheep from his high abode, and came and looked after them. 17. And he called to that sheep which had escaped from the wolves, and spoke with it concerning the wolves, that it should counsel them not to touch the sheep. 18. And that sheep went to the wolves by the voice of the Lord, and another sheep met that sheep, and went with it, and these two came together to the abode of those wolves, and spoke with them, and admonished them that from this moment they should not touch the sheep. 19. And then I saw the wolves, and how they exceedingly oppressed the sheep with all their power, and the sheep cried aloud. 20. And their Lord came to the sheep, and began to beat those wolves, and the wolves began to lament, but the sheep became quiet, and from then on did not cry. 21. And I saw the sheep till they had gone away from the wolves, and the wolves were blinded as to their eyes, and those wolves went out that they might follow the sheep with all their power. 22. And the Lord of the sheep went with them, leading them, and all the sheep followed him, and his face was shining, and this appearance terrible and sublime. 23. But the wolves commenced to follow those sheep till they reached them in a sea of water. 24. And this sea of water was divided, and the water stood from this side and from that before their faces, and their Lord leading them stood also between them and the wolves. 25. And as those wolves did not yet see the sheep, they went into the middle of the sea of water, and the wolves followed the sheep, and ran after them into the sea of water. 26. And when they saw the Lord of the sheep they turned that they might flee from before his face, but this sea of water gathered itself together, suddenly took again its own character, and the water swelled and rose till it covered those wolves. 27. And I saw till all the wolves which had followed those sheep were destroyed, and sank down. 28. But the sheep escaped from that water, and went into the desert, where there was no water and no grass, and they began to open their eyes and to see, and I saw the Lord of the sheep pasturing them and giving them water and grass, and that former sheep going and leading them. 29. And this sheep ascended to the height of a high rock, and the Lord of the sheep sent it to them. 30. And after that I saw the Lord of the sheep as he stood before them, and his appearance was terrible and powerful, and all those sheep saw him, and were afraid before his face. 31. And they were all afraid, and trembled before him, and cried after that sheep which was with him to the other sheep which was among them, We are not able to exist before our Lord, or to look at him. 32. And that sheep which led them returned, and ascended to the height of that rock, but the sheep began to be blinded as to their eyes and erred from the path which it showed to them, but this sheep did not know it. 33. And the Lord of the sheep was enraged over them greatly, and that sheep discovered it, and descended from the height of the rock, and came to the sheep, and found the greater part of them blinded as to their eyes, and erring from his path. 34. And as they saw it they feared and trembled before its face, and desired to return to their folds. 35. And that sheep took other sheep with it, and came to those erring sheep, and then it began to kill them, and the sheep feared its countenance. And thus that sheep brought back those erring sheep, and they returned to their folds. 36. And I saw there in the vision till that sheep became a man, and built the Lord of the sheep a house, and placed all the sheep in that house. 37. And I saw till that sheep that had met the sheep which led the sheep reposed in death, and I saw till all the large sheep were destroyed, and small ones arose in their places, and they came to a pasture and approached a stream of water. 38. And this sheep which led them, and which became a man, was separated from them, and reposed in death, and all the sheep sought it, and cried over it exceedingly. 39. and I saw till they became quiet from their crying over this sheep, and they crossed that stream of water, and there always arose other sheep that led them in the place of those which had departed and led them. 40. And I saw the sheep until they came into a good place, and into a pleasant and glorious land, and I saw these sheep till they were satisfied, but the house stood among them in the beautiful land. 41. And sometimes their eyes were opened, and sometimes they were blinded, till another sheep arose, and led them, and conducted them all back, and their eyes were opened. 42. And the dogs and the foxes and the wild boars began to devour those sheep till another sheep arose, a buck, in their midst, which led them. 43. And this buck began to butt those dogs and those foxes and those wild boars from both sides, till he had destroyed them all. 44. And that sheep had its eyes opened, and saw this buck which was among the sheep departing from his honor, and beginning to butt those sheep, and to tramp on them, and to walk unseemly. 45. And the Lord of the sheep sent that sheep to another sheep and exalted it to become a buck, and to lead the sheep in the place of that sheep which had deserted his honor. 46. And it went to it, and spoke to it alone, and elevated it to become a buck, and made it the prince and leader of the sheep, but during all that time those dogs oppressed the sheep. 47. And the first buck pursued the second buck, and the second buck rose up and fled before its face, and I saw till those dogs cast down the first buck. 48. And that second buck arose, and led the smaller sheep, and this buck begat many sheep, and reposed in death, and a small sheep became the buck in its place and was the prince and leader of those sheep. 49. And those sheep grew and increased, and the dogs and the foxes and the wild boars were afraid and fled before it, and that buck butted and killed all the wild beasts, and those wild beasts had no more power among the sheep, and never robbed them of anything. 50. And that house became great and broad, and a large tower was built on that house of the Lord of the sheep for those sheep, and the house was low, but the tower was high and broad, and the Lord of the sheep stood on that tower, and they placed a full table before him. 51. And I again saw those sheep that they again erred, and went many ways, and left their house, and the Lord of the sheep called some from among them, and sent them to the sheep, but the sheep began to kill them. 52. And one of them was saved, and was not killed, but escaped, and cried over the sheep, and they wanted to kill it, but the Lord of the sheep saved it out of the hands of the sheep, and brought it up to me, and caused it to dwell there. 53. And he sent many other sheep to those sheep to admonish them, and to lament over them. 54. And after that I saw, as they left the house of the Lord of the sheep and his tower, they departed entirely, and their eyes were blinded, and I saw the Lord of the sheep that he caused much death among them in each one of their herds, till these sheep even called for this death, and they betrayed his place. 55. And he left them in the hand of the lions and tigers and wolves and jackals, and in the hand of foxes and all the wild beasts, and these wild beasts began to tear those sheep to pieces. 56. And I saw that he left that house of theirs and their tower and gave them all into the hand of lions that they should tear and devour them, into the hand of all the wild beasts. 57. And I began to cry aloud with all my power, and called upon the Lord of the sheep and showed him this in reference to the sheep, that they were being devoured by all the wild beasts. 58. But he remained silent, seeing it, and rejoiced that they were devoured and swallowed and robbed, and left them in the hand of all the wild beasts as food. 59. And he called 70 shepherds and put away those sheep, in order that they should pasture them, and he spoke to the shepherds and to their companions, each single one of you will now pasture the sheep, and everything I command you, do. 60. And I deliver them over to you according to number, and will tell you which of them will be destroyed, those kill. 61. And he gave those sheep over to them. And to another, he called and said to him, Watch and see everything that the shepherds do concerning these sheep, for they will destroy more of them than I have commanded. 62. And each superabundance and the destruction which the shepherds do to these write down, how many they destroy by my command, and how many they destroy by their own will, and write down separately each destruction by each shepherd. 63. And according to the number recite before me how many they have destroyed of their own account and how many were given them for destruction, that this may be a testimony for me against them, that I may know every deed of the shepherds to give them over, and may see what they do, whether they do my commands which I have commanded them or not. 64. And they will not know, and you shalt not let them know nor admonish them, but write down all the destruction of the shepherds, each one in its time, and lay everything before me. 65. And I saw till those shepherds pastured in their times and began to kill and to destroy more than was commanded them, and left those sheep in the hands of the lions. 66. And the lions and the tigers devoured and swallowed the greater part of those sheep, and the wild boars devoured with them, and they burned that tower and demolished that house. 67. And I mourned a great deal over that tower because that house of the sheep was demolished, and after that I could no longer see those sheep whether they entered that house. 68. And the shepherds and their companions delivered over those sheep to all the wild beasts to devour them, and each one of them received in his time a certain number, and of each one the other wrote down in a book how many he destroyed. 69. And each one killed and destroyed more than was ordered him, and I began to cry and to lament exceedingly concerning those sheep. 70. And in the vision I saw that scribe as he wrote each one that was destroyed by those shepherds on each day, and brought up and opened and showed this whole book to the Lord of the sheep, everything that they had done, and every one that each single one had removed, and every one that they had handed over for destruction. 71. And the book was read before the Lord of the sheep, and he took the book in his hand, and read it and sealed it and laid it down. 72. And after that I saw that shepherds pastured 12 hours, and behold, 3 of those sheep turned around and came and entered and began to build everything that was demolished of the house, but the wild boars attempted to hinder them, and they could not. 73. And they again began to build, as before, and put up that tower, and it was called the High Tower, and they again began to place a table before that tower, and all the bread on it was unclean and not pure. 74. And concerning all this the sheep were blinded as to their eyes, and did not see, and their shepherds likewise, and a great many were delivered to their shepherds for destruction, and they trod on the sheep with their feet and devoured them. 75. And the Lord of the sheep remained quiet till all the sheep were scattered in the field and mixed themselves with them, and did not save them from the hands of the wild beasts. 76. And he who wrote the book brought it to the houses of the Lord of the sheep, and showed it and read it and petitioned him on their account, and asked him, while showing him all the deeds of their shepherds and testifying before him against all the shepherds. 77. And he took the book and laid it beside him, and departed. Chapter 90. 1. And I saw to the time when 36 shepherds thus pastured, and each one completed his time like the first, and others received them in their hands to pasture them in their time, each shepherd in his own time. 2. And after that I saw in the vision all the birds of heaven coming, the eagles and the vultures and the buzzards and the crows, but the eagles led all the birds, and they began to devour those sheep and to pick out their eyes and to devour their flesh. 3. And the sheep cried out because their flesh was being devoured by the birds. And I cried and lamented in my sleep over that shepherd who was pasturing the sheep. 4. And I saw until those sheep were devoured by the dogs and the eagles and the buzzards, and they did not leave on them meat or skin or muscles till the skeletons stood there alone, and the skeletons fell to the ground also, and the sheep became less. 5. And I saw to the time when 23 shepherds pastured, and they completed, each in his time, 58 times. 6. But small lambs were born from those white sheep, and they began to open their eyes and to see and to cry to the sheep. 7. But the sheep did not cry to them and did not hear what they said to them, but were exceedingly deaf, and their eyes exceedingly and powerfully blinded. 8. And I saw in the vision that the crows flew on to those lambs and took one of those lambs, but broke the sheep and devoured them. 9. And I saw till horns came to those lambs, and the crows threw down those horns, and I saw till any great horn came forth, one of those sheep, and their eyes were opened. 10. And it looked at them, and their eyes were opened, and it cried to the sheep, and the bucks saw it, and all ran to it. 11. And with all that those eagles and vultures and crows and buzzards to that time were tearing those sheep to pieces, and flew down on them and devoured them, but the sheep remained quiet, and the bucks lamented and cried out. 12. And those crows fought and battled with it and sought to remove that horn, but had no power over it. 13. And I saw them till the shepherds and the eagles and those vultures and buzzards came, and they cried to those crows that they should break that horn of the buck, and they fought and battled with it, and it fought with them and cried that its help might come to it. 14. And I saw till that man who had written down the names of the shepherds and brought them up to the Lord of the sheep came, and he helped that buck and showed it everything, that its help had come down. 15. And I saw till that Lord of the sheep came to them in anger, and all who saw him fled, and all fell into his shadow before his face. 16. All the eagles and vultures and crows and buzzards assembled and brought with them all the sheep of the desert, and they all came together and assisted one another in order to break the horn of the buck. 17. And I saw that man who had written the book by the voice of God till he opened that book of destruction which those last 12 shepherds had practiced, and showed that they had destroyed more than those before them, before the Lord of the sheep. 18. And I saw till the Lord of the sheep came to them and took the rod of anger in his hand, and struck the earth so that the earth was rent apart, and all the beasts and the birds of heaven fell away from those sheep, and sank down into the earth, and it was covered over them. 19. And I saw till a great sword was given to the sheep, and the sheep came to those wild beasts to kill them, and all the beasts and the birds of heaven fled from their face. 20. And I saw till a throne was built on the earth in the pleasant land, and the Lord of the sheep sat upon it, and he took all the sealed books and opened those books before the Lord of the sheep. 21. And the Lord called to those first 6 white ones, and commanded that they should bring to him, from the first star on, which had come forth, all the stars whose sexual members had been similar to the sexual members of horses, and also the first star that had first fallen, and they brought all before him. 22. And he said to that man who wrote before him, who was one of the 6 white ones, and said to him, Take those 70 shepherds to whom I have delivered the sheep, and taking them, they of their own account killed more than I had commanded them. 23. And behold, I saw them all bound, and all stood before him. 24. And the judgment was first over the stars, and they were judged and were found to be sinners, and went to the place of judgment and were thrown into an abyss filled with fire and burning and filled with pillars of fire. 25. And those 70 shepherds were judged and were found to be sinners, and they were thrown into this abyss of fire. 26. And I saw at that time that an abyss like it was opened in the middle of the earth, which was full of fire, and they brought those blinded sheep, and they all were judged and were found to be sinners, and were thrown into the abyss of fire and burned, and this abyss was to the right of that house. 27. And I saw those sheep burning, and their bones burned. 28. And I stood looking till he enveloped that old house, and they took out all the pillars, and all the planks and the ornaments of that house were wrapped in with it, and they brought it out and put it in one place, on the right, i.e. south or of the earth. 29. And I saw the Lord of the sheep till he produced a new house, larger and higher than that first, and put it in the place of the first, which had been enveloped, and all its pillars were new, and the ornaments new and larger than of the first old one, which he had removed, and all the sheep were in its middle. 30. And I saw all the sheep that had been left and all the animals on the earth and all the birds of the heavens, falling down and worshipping those sheep and petitioning and obeying them in every word. 31. And after that those 3 who were dressed in white, who had led me up before, took me by the hand, and the hand of that buck taking hold of me, they raised me, and put me down in the midst of those sheep before the judgment took place. 32. But those sheep were all white, and their wool large and clean. 33. And all that were destroyed and scattered, and all the wild beasts and all the birds of heaven were collected in that house, and the Lord of the sheep rejoiced greatly, for they were all good and had returned to his house. 34. And I saw till they laid down that sword which had been given to the sheep, and returned it to his house, and it was sealed before the face of the Lord, and all the sheep were closed up in that house, but it could not contain them. 35. And the eyes of all of them were opened, and they saw the good, and there was not any among them that did not see. 36. And I saw that that house was large and broad and exceedingly full. 37. And I saw that a white bullock was born, and his horns were large, and all the wild beasts and all the birds of heaven feared him and petitioned him at all times. 38. And I saw till all their generations were changed, and they all became white bullocks, and the first one of them was the Word, and that Word was a great animal, and had on its head large and black horns, and the Lord of the sheep rejoiced over them and over all the bullocks. 39. And I reposed in their midst, and I awoke and saw everything. 40. And this is the vision that I saw as I was asleep, and I awoke and blessed the Lord of justice and gave him glory. 41. And then I cried greatly, and my tears did not stand still till I was not able to endure it. When I looked they flowed on account of that which I saw, because everything will come and be fulfilled, and all the deeds of men in their order appeared to me. 42. And in that night I remembered my first dream, and on its account, I cried and trembled, because I had seen that vision.